AFL High Performance Podcast. My name is Jack McLean. I'm your host, and today I'm lucky enough to have Jared Hoare as our guest. Our key topic for today's chat will be how to maximise your warm-ups for team-based athletes and how to maximise their prep for training. Welcome, Jared. Thanks for jumping on, mate. Really looking forward to our chat.
Yeah, look forward to it, mate. Thanks for having me.
No doubt, listeners, mate, you've worked in a few sports now. We'll be aware of your background, the S&Cs tuning in, performance staff. But for those tuning in, mate, that aren't aware of how it all started for you, wind us back, your passion for high performance sport and different work experiences you've had along the journey so far.
Yeah, cool. I grew up in central Queensland, so big rugby league heartland kind of area, and grew up playing rugby league. And probably the best way I describe myself was a fringe state league player. So I think that kind of lit the spark for wanting to get into the S&C world. So studied human movement science at CQU in Rockhampton, and in a previous life I was a high school teacher, so I did like a grad dip of education, but kind of saw that as just a means to an end to get into the industry. I was lucky enough there to move overseas to study my master's degree. So I did my master's of exercise science at Florida Atlantic University, and while I was there, kind of interned in the S&C department, in the athletics department there, working with like you name the sport, I probably worked with them. So it was Division 1 school, and working in football and basketball, and it basically worked my way up into an assistant kind of coaching role. So I was the lead S&C for tennis and beach volleyball, and then finished my degree, spent about 6 months doing some like personal training and a bit of tutoring and stuff like that, and was lucky enough to get a full-time gig as a lecturer at FAU in the exercise science department. Did that for 2 years. I came back Christmas 2016. My younger brother was playing with the North Queensland Cowboys at the time, and came back to do a bit of PD to kind of see how they did things there, and potentially take it back over to FAU and my teaching and coaching area there. And then was lucky enough to get offered a gig there as the Elite Pathways S&C. And I'd been overseas for about 4 years at that point, so it was probably time to come home. Worked at the Cowboys for 5 years in the Elite Pathways role, and dabbled in the NRL side there as well, helped them out wherever they needed it. And then from there, I moved on to the South Sydney Rabbitohs for a little stint as the rehab and athletic performance coordinator there. From there, I went to the Melbourne Rebels as the lead S&C coach. And then unfortunately, the Rebels had a few dramas off field, and are no longer in existence. So that kind of finished up about this time last year, actually. And then from there was obviously out and about looking for jobs and roles and things like that, and got offered the head of fitness and conditioning with the Adelaide Crows, and now here we are. So it's been a bit of a journey, and have done a fair bit of travel in my time, but no, it's all part of it, and all part of the industry, I guess. So it's tough, but a rewarding kind of gig.
Oh, 100%, mate. And you've, as we're talking off air, that the Crows are flying at the moment. So you're obviously having a successful year as a performance department, coaching and players. Number one on the ladder at the moment. We're at the pointy end of the season with 3 games to go and final. So exciting times, and no doubt we'll talk about that later on. Reflecting on that, obviously you've jumped around a fair bit, like you mentioned, overseas, multiple different sports there, and then from pathways to strength and power to reconditioning, to now looking after main group conditioning. Was it deliberate, or did a mentor sort of early on in your career sort of plant the seed of the importance of working in different sports and developing general skill set, and taking on as many roles as possible throughout your career, or is it more just been a matter of like just jumping at the best opportunity that's in front of you?
It was probably just a matter of jumping at the opportunities the best opportunities that were in front of me. I remember like probably one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from Anthony Seabold. He's a Rockhampton boy as well, so we kind of had a bit of a relationship from back in Rocky, and he said to me, just focus on be where your feet are basically, and focus on the role you've got. Don't worry about what the next one is. And he said when that time comes, it'll kind of pop up and be the right one. And that's I guess that's probably how it's happened for me. Like there was like times like spending 5 years at the Cowboys. Like towards the end of that, felt like I was probably ready to spread my wings a bit. And sometimes circumstance plays a role as well in terms of moving on to the next gig. But yeah, that was probably one of the better pieces of advice I got there, and just being able to, like, I guess, yeah, I've had some really good like heads of the department and colleagues and stuff like that who have all kind of contributed some bits and pieces along the way as well. So yeah, no, it was never like, I guess, the plan to move from team to team or sport to sport. It's just kind of the way the cards fell. But it has been, I think, for me as a coach, coming from like the two rugby codes to come and work in footy has been a good grounding, I guess. Like I've got some different ideas that other people might not have seen, and vice versa. There's a lot of things that I'm still kind of learning every day on the job in a footy environment too. So I think, which is all part of it. So yeah, it's just the way it all kind of panned out, I guess.
Yeah, no, well said, mate. That's great advice for anyone, athlete, coach, around maximising the role that you're currently in and being present, and ultimately that will just put you in the best place and allow you to make a bigger impact. Allow you to enjoy your role and to get good role, and ultimately you put your best foot forward. And those experiences you've had in the past, if you've maximised them, it's going to put you in good stead to help you in the role that you're currently in. So, well said, mate. And talked about Anthony there. Who else have been strong influences over your career to date? Obviously, you've been exposed to some world class practitioners over your time. Who have shaped your philosophy, I guess, the most?
Without, I don't want to miss anyone. Like I've definitely kind of, like I said, I've been lucky to have a lot of great mentors, and I've definitely learnt from all of them. But probably the two guys who really kind of have, I guess, lit a spark or kind of got the ball rolling in the terms of changing my thinking or philosophy was probably Michael Dobbin when he was the HPM there at the Cowboys for a little bit, with my I guess helping me understand the importance of that elite pathways role and looking at ways to make sure those guys were prepared who were potentially going from the NRL or from the elite pathways into the NRL in terms of like where they're at physically and what bridging that gap between elite pathways and an NRL preseason. I think also I should obviously give a big shout out to Paul Bowman at the Cowboys, who gave me the opportunity to move back home and work there. And I think his rapport with the players and the way he was that kind of conduit between the coaching staff and the playing group was something I definitely learned a lot from. And then probably obviously most recently, like at the Melbourne Rebels, working under Luke Vella, who was the HPM there, he has got a real passion for that, the rehab and reconditioning side of things, which is a huge part of my role at the moment in Adelaide. And I think some of his philosophies and approaches to reconditioning are things I've been able to take and bring over to footy. So and obviously like I said, working with heaps of great colleagues too. So like I said, don't want to miss out too many people, but those guys in particular have been great. And I guess here at the Crows we've got a good staff, and like Burjo's obviously got a reputation as a world-class practitioner. But I think the thing from besides his X's and O's is just his people management and his understanding of how to maximise the most out of the people who are working in his department. So it's been a great kind of learning experience there as well, and and coming into a new sport and feeling from day one being able to have a contribution there too. So it's been, like I said, just kind of standing on the shoulders of giants. Like everyone I've worked with, I think that's probably one thing I've taken from working in a few different environments, is that you can learn something from every single person you've worked with, whether it's a huge part of your philosophy or just this tiny snippet. I think everyone you work with can teach you a little bit, and if everyone has that kind of attitude, I think it goes a long way to improving your practice.
100%, mate. And what about highlights when you reflect over your career so far? What springs front of mind?
Probably the two big ones off the top of my head. Like working in that elite pathway space and seeing a lot of those guys kick on to bigger and better things. And just knowing you played a tiny snippet in the progress in their career, like seeing some guys like don't want to feel like I'm name, but like Ruben Cotter and Hanaso, Tabio Fidel and Tommy Gilbert, seeing that, knowing those guys since they were kind of like 16, 17, 18, turn into club captains and state of origin and test match players has been brilliant. And I think the other kind of like it was a very weird time with the demise of the Rebels, but I just think the way as a staff and a playing group, we kind of were able to block out some of the off-field distraction and in the last season of the club make the finals for the first time was a pretty big achievement. We kind of got kind of was like one and done in the finals, but to actually get there with all the turmoil that was going on and basically knowing that final game, which whenever it may be, was going to be the last game of the Rebels, but still kind of fronting up each week and doing our job. I think it was just a testament to the people that were in that building too. So those are probably the two kind of things that stand out for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good segue for the next question. Biggest challenges, obviously, up from sport. You're pushing the boundaries and each K per week. Look, how we sort of fit in so far. How did you grow?
Probably, I guess.
Sorry, Joe, I might have cut out a little bit there. You got me?
Yeah, cut. I got you now. Yeah, that just talking about like some challenge and stuff like that. Obviously, the Rebel stuff was a huge challenge. But it like I said, it was just probably the biggest learning from that one was having good people around you. And when everyone's on the same course and you've got some I guess, like I said, everyone was in the same boat and everyone kind of had the same thoughts and worries going on in the background. But having that tight knit group and being able to push through it was massive. So I think it was just for me, the biggest learning there was just the importance of teamwork, and you can't be in this industry and be on an island. Like you have to work with the people around you, and I guess it's shared suffering, but also shared celebration at the same time. Probably the other big career challenge is getting tapped on the shoulder mid-season at South Sydney, which is, again, it's just part of the industry. Like it's at the time you have a bit of animosity and angst and sadness and all those kinds of things, but you look back on it and for mine, like there's no you can't have any hard feelings or anything like that because it's just part of the industry that we're in. It's pretty cutthroat and sometimes tough decisions have to be made and you can be on the end of them. But out of that, like I definitely can reflect on it and look at some of the positives that came out of it. Like I was able to maybe do some self-reflection on me and my practice, really start to think about what is my philosophy as a coach and start to have some more of those deeper thoughts, I guess. And then beyond that, like I was able to spend some of that time away from coaching, and do a bit of studying and kind of dig my teeth into some data analytics work, which was quite interesting. And beyond that, like the other thing I learned was like how much I actually love coaching, because when you're not doing it, um, it's I was like, man, I always wish I was in front of the guys again in coaching. So, which was, and I think after the demise of the Rebels, that was one thing that from that South Sydney experience, like I was able to kind of go, well, this bad things happen, but I need to keep on keeping on. So I did a bit of, was doing like some coaching at some different gyms and stuff like that with Gen Pop, and it gives you a different perspective on it as well when you've got people who are actually paying their own money for you to coach them, and how much gratitude they have for it. So it meant, to me, it was like, well, I have to bring my best self every day, to coach these guys. And I think having that attitude is something that I try and bring. And I guess I've always tried to bring it, but when you've kind of had that other experience, like it's something that you really start to see the importance of that. Yeah, you've got to be your best self every day for the people you're coaching, whether they're paying you, whether they're professional athletes, Olympic sports, AFL, NRL, whatever it might be. Like you've just got to give them their best opportunity. Their best opportunity to get better is if you give them your best self. So those are probably, like I said, a couple of interesting experiences, but definitely learn a lot from them.
Yeah, it resonates, mate. I think you nailed it in terms of from a mindset perspective. It's good learning for anyone listening in that it's hard at the time. What are some things I can get after? You actually grow and you learn a lot more from those challenges than perhaps when things are going really well. So yeah, I think there's some great gems there, mate, for anyone that's tuning in, and certainly, yeah, probably one of the reasons why you're still doing great things in high performance sport because of that mindset, no doubt. But let's dive into the topic, mate. Good to
Yeah.
provide a bit of context on how it all fits together and your philosophy and different experiences, but around preparation. And it's something that's probably I've seemed to notice anyway, a growing trend in the, I guess, progressive programs is maximising that time before players get on the field, and something that you sort of talked about as a key topic. Yeah, what does it look like for you in terms of, I guess, optimal preparation for AFL, and what are some of the things that you like to do that you put into place at the Crows?
Yeah, like I think the biggest thing is always with our physical preparation stuff, pre-training, is what's training look like today, and how can we get the guys in the best place physically to perform on the field. So depending on, I guess it's kind of a bit of a reverse engineering from there. So what are we doing on the field? What are some of our big rocks that we need to tick off that's going to get those guys right to do that on the field? And then I guess beyond that, we also start to look at what kind of a turnaround do we have? Are we missing a gym session because we've got a shorter turnaround? Can we pick up some of that stuff in our preparation phase and that kind of thing? So I guess a good example is on like a main training day. We'll always kind of start that with some speed and agility work on the field. So a lot of our prep inside, it'll usually start with the guys having a bit of their own time. So obviously some guys, if they've got some tendon loading they need to do, or some individualized prep around like prehab or injury pieces that they need to tick off before they can get out and train. We always give the guys that opportunity to do their own thing. For some guys, that they might not have anything they need to do particularly, and they might just have a bit of a roll and a stretch. Some guys will seek out the performance coaches and be like, hey, like I want to work on A, B, or C. I want to work on my agility. What are some things I can do right now that are going to help me before I go out on the field? And then from there, we'll kind of move into some rotations. And we'll kind of split it up into maybe like 3 or 4 different groups, looking at some key pieces. So, like I said, if it's an agility and speed day, we'll kind of focus on maybe a bit of like trunk preparation, some ankle and calf stiffness preparation, and then some work around our hips and posterior chain mobility. And then if we have the opportunity, we'll also try and involve some developmental skill coaches in there as well. So we'll have like a skill station within that preparation phase, which I think the players also appreciate, because a lot of the guys, like, if they had the opportunity, they would happily turn up on game day with their boots over their shoulder, chuck them on, and then I'll see you at training next week. So being able to tip into some skills as well in that prep phase, I think it just goes a long way to, like I said, we're preparing the guys to put their best self out in the field on that particular day. So on a main training days, that's obviously the skill element's huge. So being able to have some kind of a skill element in the prep before we even get out and warm up is something we have started to utilize, and we've seen to get some really good outcomes and some good feedback from the staff and the players. So, and that's always, I guess, the for mine, that's always something I kind of seek out, is like talking to some of the more senior guys, or the more into it guys, I guess, like, hey, what did you think of this? What did you think of that? And if it's great, oh yeah, loved it, cool, we'll crack on and keep doing. If it's something they're like, oh, it's all right, or as a performance staff, like, we're really good at kind of debriefing every session and reflecting on every session, which again, it just helps to improve our practice and what we deliver to the playing group. So yeah, I guess, like, the biggest thing is our prep has to kind of reflect where we are in the week, what we need for that particular training day, and maybe some other key work-ons that we think as an athletic performance department that we need to place a bit of emphasis on, or things that might slip through the cracks, or we don't have time for in our gym sessions, that we can tip into that pre-training preparation time.
Great explanation, mate. It sounds like there's a fair bit that you fit in this window. You talked about, like, obviously giving athletes some individualized time to prep their bodies. That could be, you imagine there's a lot of individual variances with that, with Achilles and, patella tendon and different hammy tendon stuff that people need to do. So it makes sense you can't cater to everyone. So you tick that box the first. Do you give them, what, 10 minutes, or how much time do you give them?
So usually about 10 minutes, maybe 15 if we've got a bigger window there, but usually 10 minutes is kind of that enough time for guys to get their whether it's tendon loading, or some guys like need some extra mobility, or just some extra work-ons that they see fit to do. And then within our, as a coaching group, as a performance coaching group, we'll probably have, like I said, 3 or 4 rotations of 4 to 5 minutes each. So maximum kind of time will be in that prep phase is half an hour, but if we can keep it to 20, 25 minutes, including their individualized time, that's kind of the sweet spot for us, because some guys will start to get a bit antsy and they'll want to get out in the field and get to work. And it can be herding cats sometimes. So you want to kind of keep it as short and sharp and I guess short and sharp and precise as possible, to give them, like I said, their best opportunity to train well on that day.
And then who's managing it? You mentioned you got skill coaches, and then your whole performance department. So it sounds like there's a few different stations.
So we'll have usually be myself, Robbie Jarrett, and Josh Manuel doing our 3 kind of physical rotations, and then a couple of the development coaches will run a small little skill station there as well. So between the 3 of us, and usually Josh will keep the clock, keep on the top of the clock and the timings, so we can make sure there's no, like, trying to minimize lag time or dead time as much as possible there as well. So we will always kind of again, kind of have like a pre-session quick little catch up and say like, hey, if this station might run a bit short or this station might go a bit long, what if we think about maybe swapping these two exercises around? Or hey, have you got an extra mobility piece you could probably add in there if you've got guys who are twiddling their thumbs? So like I said, we always try and keep it as sharp as possible and keep the guys on task as much as possible. And like I said, I think the best thing about and it's, again, it's easy when you're at this level and you've got plenty of resources there and personnel there. It's a lot easier. But yeah, we always try and keep it so we can minimize that dead time up there.
And the individual time, like if there's players sort of just mucking around, have a bit of a chat, bit of banter, is that a problem? Or yeah, what are some challenges you guys have had bringing this in?
It's not too bad. Like I think it's one of those things where you're comfortable having guys having a bit of banter and a bit of a laugh as long as they're getting some work done. So there's obviously some guys who are unicorns who've never had a tendinopathy or never had have no injury history. But getting to some of those guys, like there's a few of those guys we can get to and start to like, hey, look, what are your weapons that you need to work on? Or if it's a guy who's maybe not in the team, who's playing state league and trying to crack into the 22, have a bit of a chat to them like, hey, what do you think you need to get better at? Or what are some extra pieces that you might need? And just trying to find any way we can to maximize the time for those guys as well. A lot of I guess the more senior players, they kind of know what they need and know what gets them ready to go. So you can kind of leave them to their own devices, and they're also, as they get more experience, they're really good at being they're able to have that banter and whatnot. But when it's time to flip the switch, they can just lock into whatever the task at hand is. And I think sometimes younger players might see that and they're like, oh, I can do that, but it's a learned thing. It's something that takes a long time to be able to really lock into 100%. This is my job right now, and then being able to switch off even in between sets. You can see, or in between rotations, you can see those senior guys. They'll have a bit of a laugh and a bit of banter and have a joke and all that kind of stuff. But as soon as it's time to get to work, they can just lock into the task. So yeah, it's one of those things with that individual time, I guess. Without getting too far away from the question, is just giving the guys, like I said, everyone has a work on, whether it's an injury work on, a skill work on, or a physical work on. And that's probably the other part too. Like a lot of guys will get out we've got a little indoor, bit of indoor turf there. So the guys who might be the unicorns, they might get out and get into with the skill coaches or with a group of players and get into some skills. So I think it's one thing that I've found with our group, like they're very driven in terms of being able to get to work when they need to. And I'm just lucky that I've come in on the back end of some real hard work that others have put in to get the group to that kind of level where they know what they need and understand what it takes, and they can utilize that time pretty well.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like there's effective culture. I guess habits are in a good place there, which makes a lot of sense with where you guys are sitting at the moment. You talked about time being the essence, and you can imagine that like 30 minutes and the players start getting a bit angsty. They want to just get on the field and start doing footy. I guess the perks you imagine with this approach is you don't need to do a generalized warm up on field for 20 minutes of mobility and drilling and those sort of things. You can get straight into some intensity.
Yeah.
What does happen straight after this sort of, let's say, 25-minute rotation where they've had a fair amount of good work there, where you've got some skill, they should be mentally, physically ready to go. What comes next?
Yeah, so we'll, like I said, if it's a main training day, is probably the best example. Like the guys will, because our gym and kind of indoor facilities upstairs, so it's probably like a 10-minute kind of 5 to 10-minute transition time to get on the field. And when the guys get on the field, we'll just split them up into a couple groups and have a couple different speed and agility rotations, again, depending on what our week looks like. if we've had a long turnaround, short turnaround, we'll kind of play a bit of a role in dictating what we're doing there. And we'll have, like I said, myself and Rob will kind of coach them, and Joshy will keep us on the clock so we're on task. Rotate through them. The guys will have a few different kind of some kick warm up kind of stuff, where from there we'll get into just a couple of speed efforts, just so we're due diligence with finding some high speed efforts before training, and that's, again, I think it just is a credit to our department, is we all kind of get across what we need in terms of who needs to find speed today, who just needs to kind of cruise through, who's really struggled, who hasn't found a big effort for a little while, like we really need to get at that guy or this guy. So they'll have a couple of speed efforts there just for so we've had our kind of speed exposure for the week, and then from there they'll get into training, and like you said, like we don't go on the field and we don't need a big elaborate kind of dynamic mob or huge warm up or anything like that, because we've kind of already ticked those boxes upstairs. A couple little speed agility drills on the field, and some footy warm up before kind of we can go high octane, and then hopefully take that intensity into the session.
Fantastic. Sounds like that's yeah, the boys will be more than ready to rip in there, like you said, and get into high octane drills and main training sort of sessions. With managing your role, where I guess maybe if you just explain your role with your key responsibilities at the Crows at the moment, and then it'd be good to sort of feed into how you manage the main group and obviously the rehab athletes as well.
Yeah. So the head of fitness and conditioning is probably maybe a bit of a misnomer, but my main kind of remit with the group is the head of rehab S&C. So playing a huge role in terms of what the guys in rehab are doing in the gym, and getting them right in that space. And Duncan Callaway, our rehab physio, he's a real experienced operator. He's got looks after the on-field stuff from there. So Duncan and I kind of work really closely in terms of mapping out the week and what each day will look like, and I guess making sure we're, again, maximising the opportunity for those guys in rehab to perform at their best. So what a big day looks like, what an off day looks like, all that kind of stuff. What are some boxes we need to tick before guys can move on to the next stage in that rehab phase. And then beyond there, like I said, my kind of responsibility with the main group, I operate that prep phase. So all the content I'm kind of delivering there, and getting across to the performance staff about, hey, this is what we're going to do this week or today. And again, that's as a performance group, when we have our Monday morning kind of map out the week. What does gym look like this week? What are some things that we might, if we have a short turnaround, hey, we have to chop out a couple of things in the gym. So, Corey, can you make sure you pick up a couple of these things in that prep phase? And then beyond that, again, like the speed and agility drills, all that kind of stuff, I'll take care of. And then helping out with the main group in the gym. So I'll have a group of maybe, like, beyond the rehabbers, maybe like 5 or 6 other players who I'll be across for their strength programming. So Josh Manuel, the head of strength and athletic development, he'll program, but then any kind of individual mods, I'm kind of responsible for those guys within my group. And so it might be guys, it could be guys who are healthy, or guys who have had some chronic injuries or some long-term injuries in the past. So I guess just modifying their program to again help them stay fit, and improve some potential deficiencies or some work-ons that they've incurred through the course of their career. So yeah, it's, like I said, it's a pretty kind of jack of all trades, like special, that it's in that specialist generalist kind of role, which I think is something I really enjoy, because I get across so many different parts of the program. And I think it's
Mm.
just, again, I think the huge thing with all that kind of stuff, and it's probably one thing I've kind of harped on a little bit, is just having great communication. I think within our department, we've got some really good communication lines, and I think that makes everyone's job a lot easier because there's clarity. Everyone has an understanding of what the day might look like, or what's required for this particular session that's coming up. And I think that just goes a long way to making our lives easier, because we all kind of have that clarity. And if we don't, like, I think it's a department where people aren't afraid to ask questions, and I think that's something, again, you learn along the journey. Like, asking questions isn't a bad thing, because the more clarity we have, the better we are at our jobs, and the better we are at our jobs, the better the players can perform. And that's the crux of it. Like, we're here to support them and make them the best version of themselves on the field. So yeah, I think, like I said, that's it in a nutshell. It's a few moving parts, but yes, that specialist generalist role, huge piece in the rehab and that prep phase is where I kind of hang my hat on.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. It sounds like perfect fit for with your skill set and experience, like we touched on earlier in the chat. With going back to like the importance of time and keeping that flow, how have you guys, I guess, for practitioners looking to bring this in, we're not far to the end of the season where teams do reflect on what are they going to change in the preseason. Um, like things like the nuance with it all. How often would you change a routine? Like you said, maybe the medical team has said, geez, the groins are pretty tight. We're going a 6 day break. And you're like, okay, I'm going to let the performance staff know we're going to add in some groin mobs or some isometric, whatever it might be. You're changing the routine to maybe last week. How do you get that balance right between, obviously it's familiar, the players know it, it's going to flow really easily because it's not a new drill, but also bringing things in that your environment you feel that you need as a performance staff.
Yeah, I think that's probably the hardest part of it, is having that kind of balance between familiarity and making those modifications where we see fit on the run. So we'll try not to make huge, like, wholesale changes across the week, from week to week. Like, we'll try and keep a similar thread there, and it might be like a 3 to 5 week kind of block of an exercise, and then once we start to see maybe some mastery there, adding another layer onto that, whether it's like a constraint or a perturbation, or just making it a bit more dynamic, something like that. And then I guess from the other side of it, like, if we start to see some, like, if our groin monitoring surveillance is starting to see some guys drop in their squeezes or whatever, we'll come together and say, hey, look, what are we thinking that we might need to work on here, or what is there something that we need to change, or something that we have changed that maybe we should maybe revert back to our previous kind of work we were doing. So I guess a good example of that is, for mine, like, I've got to be cognizant of what's our prep look like in the gym. So if we're doing a heap of rotational exercises in the gym, or a heap of like anterior hip work in our gym prep, like, I don't want to be then in our prep to train phase, I don't want to be doubling up on that. So if, like I said, if I don't want to be getting into heaps of like some good morning rotations or couch stretches and stuff like that if we're already really hammering that in the gym. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just having that awareness of what's happening in the like global program as well. So not just staying with my blinkers on and being like, oh, well, this is what I'm doing, and no matter what, this is what's going to happen. It's having that flexibility and that understanding of what's going on with the rest of the program. And again, like, if it's a short turnaround, we might kind of, rather than having 3 really big athletic performance kind of based stations, we might go like, hey, look, let's kick it back a gear. Like, hey, let's have a mobility focus today. And we can still make that mobility quite dynamic where we have to, or where we want to, and or we might see like hey, guys are really squeaking with their thoracic stuff, so maybe we can add in some more mobility through there, or some more rotations through there. Or on the flip side, it might be like, hey, like we added in too much of that last week, so maybe let's chop a bit of that out and add something else in. Or yeah, I guess that's the probably the hardest part of that prep phase is looking at making it somewhere where we know we're going to get some athletic improvement, keeping it fresh without making it like we're not here to entertain is probably the other thing. But also, yeah, keeping an eye on what's the rest of the program doing, how are the players responding to the rest of the program. So yeah, I guess keeping those things in mind is huge. And yeah, just as a staff, kind of coming together and using it, having some ideas and some conversations around like, hey, maybe this or that or the other. And I think that's something that I'm always like willing to listen and take the advice and ideas of the rest of the group, because that's something that I think is important, is having those conversations and having having a staff. I think that's, again, something that we've been quite good at, is having a group where we're happy to take on board feedback and implement that feedback from other people in what might be your remit or your part of the program. So that's probably, yeah, the biggest thing is keeping an open mind to what you're doing in that prep phase, and adjusting it as it needs to be adjusted, whether it's because of the schedule or, again, because of what the rest of the program is doing, or how the players are responding to that program.
And you mentioned earlier how when you're designing this phase, the block, the prep to train, you're reverse engineering from main training. So I imagine that's main group in mind, not so much the rehab athletes. Do the performance staff just modify on the fly a little bit with the rehabbers that might be in this rotation if they're able to, or is it more a case of, oh no, they're not in there because it makes it a bit, they're in a different sort of program?
Yeah, the rehab guys will usually have their own kind of prep phase. I think once they get to that return to performance and return to play phase, they'll start to feed into the main group as much as they can in that prep stuff. There might be bits and pieces of it where they can't, so it's always like, again, like myself and Dunk and might have a chat and say, like, oh, hey, this guy can be in these two things, but maybe when they're in this other rotation, he has some other work-ons that he can tick off while he's there. So yeah, it's just I guess it's a horses for courses kind of philosophy with that. So you want those guys, and again, I think in that rehab space, like it can, for those guys who are in rehab, like it can get quite lonely at times. So as much as you can, you want them to be amongst the main group. So yeah, I guess it's just dependent on where those guys are at, and generally they'll be doing their own thing before training, but as much as we can, getting them involved with what the main group's doing too.
And you mentioned obviously your involvement in the rotations and then on field with the speed and agility. How do you manage the rehab individual programs while you've got those sort of main group responsibilities?
I guess that's the again, that's just that time management piece and having a good understanding of what's happening with the I guess the main program and the rehab is. So like between myself and Dunk, like having a chat at the end of each week and looking at the training schedule for the following week and saying, like, hey, well, if we're on at 10 a.m. on grass, well, what time do you think we should get the rehabbers in for their prep? And if it's a guy in a big kind of prep or a big kind of important stage of his rehab, where he's got a fair bit of prep to tick off, we might get them in a little bit earlier so they can get that done. They might have some testing they need to do before they can get out in the field, plus their prep, and then out on grass. So just having that, I guess, those conversations about like, hey, what do our timings look like for the rehabbers today? And like I said, like pretty lucky, like Dunk will kind of take the reins when it comes to the guys on grass. So and again, but at the same time, like working around his schedule too, because like he will still have some responsibilities in terms of helping the main group guys prep for training, whether it's activations or strapping or um, some muscle releases, whatever the case may be. So again, just having those good communication lines to ensure we're not putting ourselves under the pump too much, but also making sure that the guys are able to get the most out of their day as well.
Yeah, yeah. And prep for gym, what does that look like? How big are the rotations and time? Are they time based as well, 3 to 4 minutes, or
No,
is
it's a
there
bit
skills involved? Or
the gym. Our gym prep's probably a bit more succinct, and just really based on what we need for that day in the gym. So if it's a big like a big squat day or a big lower body day, I guess. And Josh he kind of takes the reins for the holistic gym program there. So looking at like so might be some good deep range stretches, some trunk activation, and some mobility through our hips and T spine, that kind of stuff. Or if it's a day where it's a big power focus, we'll look at some more reactivity kind of based warm ups, and that prep will also include maybe a couple of different like power exercise where it's some tosses or med ball slams or bench throws and that kind of stuff to get the guys kind of primed for those days where we need them to be really explosive and moving the bar fast. So similar philosophy though, I guess, like we talked about like reverse engineering prep for training, like gym. I guess the gym prep is very similar. Like let's reverse engineer what we're doing to get us ready for the gym, and I guess we still have to take into account like where we are in the week and our turnaround. So if it's a shorter turnaround, we might utilize that gym prep time as a more of a mobility piece rather than a performance piece, I guess. So similar philosophy in terms of that too. So yeah, it's I guess, and then the beauty of that is like I think the players kind of, and it might just be that subconsciously even they might not think it out loud, but subconsciously they understand what we're doing in our prep is really aligned to our week and not only our week but our session that we're getting ready for. So yeah, no, it's like I said, it's very similar concepts and philosophies to what we do for our prep to train on the field.
awesome, mate. And final one, mate. You mentioned Luke Bella and how he was pretty strong influence from a reconditioning philosophy. What were some of those sort of principles and methods that you really took on board that you find really effective at your role at the Crows?
I think probably the biggest one was the detail, and being really across having some strong outcome based goals like that we want to see and how we're going to get there. So if we have a hamstring injury, like grade 1, grade 3, whatever the case is, what are we hanging our hat on in terms of how are we getting this player? What are our testing metrics that we believe wholeheartedly in? Is it Nordics? Is it like a run specific hip ISO? Is it an Askling slider? Is it their mobility? Is it whatever, like you name it? What is it? Is it are we not letting them move on to the next phase of rehab, or are we not letting them integrate into skill until we see them hit 85% max velocity on the field? And I think beyond that, the other piece was there's always something they can do. So there's always a way to get the most out of players. So how can we maximize their reconditioning in terms of their off feet work? What are their weapons on the field, and how can we help them sharpen those things up before they go back out to play? in terms of their like their actual, like their skill and their footy. Like, hey, what are some things we might be able to do in a static environment that's going to help them get better? So if it's a rugby scrum half or an NRL dummy half, if they've got a knee injury, there's nothing to stopping them from doing some passing in the gym in between sets. If it's a rugby league or a rugby union front rower, like, what are some different modalities that we can attack in some off-feet conditioning to help them get better at their role. And similar in a footy sense, probably some stuff there that I really tried to implement with guys in a footy sense. So if you've got some of the guys with their body work and their contact work, like, what are some things we can do in that rehab phase before they're back out and amongst skill, amongst the main group that we can really start to hone in on. So is it utilizing like trunk and core exercises as a huge part of their off-feet conditioning, and just little things like that. But like I said, I think the biggest one was just having that detail. And I think one thing we always talked about was having a high care, high challenge environment. So obviously we're there to really help the players get back to where they want to get to, but at the same time, like, really pushing them to the, not necessarily to the limit, but pushing them in different ways to help them get to where they need to get to.
Fantastic. It was a great week that I spent with you guys. At the Rebels, and like you said, you could tell with your performance department at the time, the communication that's popped up as a big value was strong, as well as, like you said, the attention to detail, all while going through, like you said, the challenging year. Those values sort of stuck true no matter what was sort of going on around the club, which, good testament to you guys, and some great takeaways for myself, and hopefully for the listeners as well, that how important some of these fundamental things are around, like you said, care for the athlete, the art of coaching and showing support, but equally being able to have genuine conversations and challenge them to get better. And a rehab's such a great place where you do have the time, a unique situation where you can spend so much time with the athlete and truly make change. Is that part of the rewarding experience with your role at the moment with the reconditioning side of things?
Yeah, massively. I think that's probably I think, like, when I first got it, like, working at Souths and in that rehab role, like, it was a bit foreign to me, but I think I'm drawn to it because you get to have those kind of tighter interactions with players, and you kind of get to see, you genuinely see some guys when they're at their lowest ebb, like guys who have come off like massive knee injuries or massive shoulder injuries, or recurrent hamstrings, or whatever the case may be. So you've got guys who are really kind of circling the drain there at times, but being able to help them go from there to performing on the field is really, really rewarding. And like it's challenging from a coaching perspective as well as I wouldn't know, but it's challenging from an athlete perspective as well, because that's their livelihood, and that's kind of, for a lot of them, that's for better or worse, like it's what their identity is. But to kind of take that, being able to have that really closer connection with them, and kind of see them through from go to woe is really rewarding. And like you said, I think the thing about rehab and I guess that performance in general, like there's no growth within the comfort zone. So taking those guys to some really, putting them in some really deep holes in some off-feet conditioning or some on-field work when they're doing it by themselves, and there's the team's already left for an away game and they're out on the field busting their hump alone, is really tough, and it really kind of you can see the guys who are really struggling through it, but when you see them come out the other side, and again, it might be a subconscious thing from them, but they've built up some calluses, and they've proven to themselves that they can. So I think, that's, for me, that's why I really love that kind of rehab space. You get that connection with them, and you get to see them go from that dark hole to doing what they love doing. So yeah, it's very, very rewarding.
Awesome, mate. Well, it's a good hour there that we've spent on this topic, and you can tell that it's something that you've spent a lot of time, iterating, and the Crows are doing it at a really high level. It's integrated, it's detailed, and clearly it's affecting the way the boys are able to train and ultimately play and stay injury free. Um, any follow up or way to wrap it up before there's just last few questions outside of the topic, mate? Any sort of lasting takeaways? That you think for those looking to bring this in?
Um, like I said, I think it's just having that. I think the more there's no such thing as too much detail. And I think that's I've probably learned that the hard way over my career. Like um, the more detail you have, if you do have something that goes wrong or you have a miss, it's a lot easier to find out where that issue might lie. So and like things like timing and stuff like that. Like I'm again learning the hard way. Like time management can be a real blind spot for me. So in that space, in that prep space, like hey, like being like locked into your time, and the way you do that is having detail around what you're doing, and having those good lines of communication as well. And again, you not necessarily learn the hard way, but something you learn as you get older and a bit wiser. There's a few grey hairs in the beard now, so the tough conversations are good conversations because no one's doing it to, well, hope you would hope that no one's doing it because it's a personal thing, but the tough conversations are there because we're just all trying to get better, whether it's the coaches trying to get better or players trying to get better. Like tough conversations are what helps us grow. So yeah, detail, communication, don't be afraid of tough conversations is probably the crux of it.
You mentioned there the time management. Are you doing are the 3 to 4 minute stations all to time? Like the athletes will do a mobility drill for 30 seconds and then on to the next one, for example, or is
Uh,
it repetitions? How do you manage that?
it'll be I guess the rotations themselves will be managed. So if we have 4 minute rotations, I guess the onus is on the coaches and the players to be like, hey, we've got 4 minutes to get through 6 sets or 4 sets or whatever it might be of these two exercises. You might give yourself again, it's a great learning experience, especially for young coaches. Like, can you explain a drill in 20 seconds and get a group of 10 blokes to do it, or 10 athletes to do it the way you need them to, and you in that short space of time, like learning how to give short and sharp instruction or feedback to help those guys through. So yeah, no, it's the timing is just on the rotations, and I guess it's up to the individual coaches to make sure the work gets done. And again, the the next layer on that is making sure the work's done to a good standard and being able to provide that really quick feedback.
Um, last four questions, mate, more separate to the topic, but in your work life, pet peeves, anything that sort of fires you up, makes you angry?
I reckon probably so in a day-to-day thing, like, and this is a really OCD bit, when cones aren't stacked color coordinated, it really gives me the ick. Like I want to like red cones all together, white cones all together, etc. I think the other thing that, and again, this is I could go down a massive rabbit hole on this one, is when you see when keyboard warriors get and say like, oh well, if this player was doing this or this staff was doing that, like Halliburton wouldn't have tore his Achilles. Like then there's just so many factors like that no one else knows about except the people inside the four walls. And sports a very, very complex environment, and you can never ever like there's no one exercise or one cure all for injuries. So I think unless you've got all the data in front of you and you know the feelings within that building, like I think you should probably just maybe keep your opinions to yourself.
100%, mate. Well said. I don't even know. You'd think that would be one of the more popular ones to
Yeah.
that answer to that question, but I don't think that's popped up yet. Favorite way to spend a day off?
Probably maybe get a little bit of a sleep in. Definitely some coffee will be involved in the morning there, and probably listening to a couple pods and some form of exercise there as well, whether it's um, go for a trot or go for a lift, and then probably just some life admin, like using that day off, trying to have a bit of R and R and a bit of downtime, but also like ticking some life admin boxes while you can. So, because I think again, without being too busy, you can get some stuff done and then feel good about it.
And what about an opinion or belief that you hold that goes against sort of popular consensus or challenges popular consensus?
It's probably related to what we've just been talking about, but I think as I've gotten older, like I think I see less and less. There's still a place for them, but I probably see less and less importance in running drills. I think that again there is a time and place for them, but I think we've all been there. We'll coach a group through some skips or some dribbles or whatever the case may be, and they look 10 out of 10, and then you go to let them open up and fly, and all those mechanics kind of go out the window. And I think in team sport, like again, it's such a complex environment. Like some of those skills can be really rigid, and then there is a time for them and a place for them. Like some guys, if they're in rehab, like it's a good way to get some running volume in without with some low risk. But yeah, I think as you get like to a healthier group, I think get the focus on like in terms of skills and drills, running skills and drills, I should say. Again, reverse engineer the sport. Like what are they doing on the field, and how can we maybe replicate that in those drills? So a lot of that constraints based stuff and dowels and perturbations and stuff like that. I think again, you can take aquabag stuff way too far down a rabbit hole, but I think having a bit more nuance in terms and a bit more creativity in terms of how we prep guys to run on the field is a huge one for me.
Yeah, awesome. Well said, mate. And I think that comes to no surprise after what we talked about today about the importance of specificity and thinking about what, keeping the main thing.
100%.
What about, I can only imagine what the answer will be, but what are you most excited about? We're obviously at the midway of August, September's on the horizon. What are you most excited about for the rest of the year, 2025?
I think just excited to see where our group can go. Like they've put in a lot of hard work, and a lot of people in the building put in a lot of hard work before I stepped foot in there. So I think seeing how far this group can go, and from my point of view is excited for the challenge, and excited to again go to the finals and do our best, but stay locked in and keep that challenge and the vibe running as much as we can, and see where it takes us.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. Yeah, well, all the best for the rest of the year for the Crows. It's an exciting brand of footy to watch, so I'll be watching a fair bit, and I'll make sure to continue to do so. And thanks again, mate, on behalf of everyone that's tuned in. If you tuned in halfway through or just at the end here, make sure to wind it back. It's on YouTube before we release it on the podcast in the next few weeks, as Jared's provide gems from the get go. So thanks again, mate. Always enjoy our chats, whether they're on air on a podcast now for the public forum or off air.
Love it.
A lot of takeaways for me, mate, and we'll keep those chats going. But for everyone that likes these live chats, our next one's with Short Hardy. He's at City Swans, which will be at the 14th of August, so coming up soon, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks again, Jared.
No worries, mate. Thanks, Jack.
Boom. Smoked that. That was awesome.
No, awesome, man.